Hi, and welcome to Beer with Geeks, where two geeks geek out with beer. With me, as a conglomeration, as we love to do these days, is the Vactor-Verse and animation fascination. We are here with Vactor, Mark, Frank, and myself, Tim. It is me.
We're doing it
gentlemen,
again.
It is lovely. We're doing it again.
Yeah.
The crossover that everybody didn't ask for. But we said we had too much fun, so I don't care what you losers think. Anyway, how are all of you? Mark, how are you? Start us off.
I'm doing okay. Just had a day to myself. Son was working. My wife went to a spa day, so spent the day with my little puppy Sylvie. Had a day to
Nice.
ourselves.
Sounds like a great day. A great day.
Yeah.
I spent the day with your wife, so how strange. No, I'm just kidding.
Plot twist.
All right. So
Plot twist. Actor, how are you today?
I'm doing excellent. This is my second podcast of the day. I'm feeling great. And guess what? I finally remembered a beverage. So I'm finally gonna join the cool kids. I got a drink.
I love it. What is your beverage today?
Today we've got not root beer, but cream soda.
Yeah, cream soda.
Another A&W classic.
Oh yeah, I forgot. I also have had one. It's Monty Python's Holy Grail.
What?
Nice. Amber gold, ale tempered over burning witches.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
What's the actual company on that? Because I want to get some.
Black Sheep Brewery.
Black Sheep Brewery.
Yeah.
I will find thee. Well, actually, tell us if it's good, because if it's not good, then I will not find. I will not be fine.
Yeah, amber ales are usually pretty good.
They
At
are.
least I like them.
It's hard to screw up an amber ale, but I'm sure it has been done.
Hmm.
And finally, the last member of the Vactor Fascination Geek-verse, it is Frank. How are you today?
I'm doing great. I am so happy to be here with you fellas to talk about my favorite superhero in his latest incarnation.
Booster Gold.
Yes.
Yeah.
Well, Skeets. Skeets. Booster Gold is just an add-on.
Yeah.
It's Skeets. Yeah, you're right.
It's
Yeah.
Skeets.
Frank, what are you drinking today on our crossover?
It's kind of my turn to be the one without a beverage this time around. I mean, I've been enjoying some Canada Dry Ginger Ale. Does that count?
Yes, it does.
Sure.
It's an ale, is it not?
It is.
Ginger
It is
ale?
an ale of the ginger ale variety.
I have a
Very-
story, a quick story. So I was in Hawaii. No, I'm sorry. I was in Japan. I was living in Hawaii, but I was doing a study abroad in Japan. And one of my studiers, one of my classmates, he loved to say this joke every day to himself, and no one laughed, but he said it every time. He goes, "They told me to drink Canada Dry, so I did." And that was it. And he would walk away. And I was the only one
What?
laughing. So anytime I think about Canada Dry, I think about that.
So stupid.
The hell?
Weirdly affecting joke, though, because Frank, it got Frank. So
got me.
it
Got
you.
me.
So-
He drank them dry.
Oh, man. So, yeah, I
Very
always think
dry
about that.
ale.
Yeah.
Oh, that's good. That's good. And I am also drinking a non-alcoholic beverage tonight. I'm drinking a Spindrift sparkling water, lime flavored,
Ooh.
because they are delicious. And you can kind of say it's like it tastes like a margarita, but it's not, because it's just a lime seltzer.
I love
just
anything
spicy
lime
water.
flavored.
Spicy.
I like a lime flavor.
Yeah.
It's great. It's great. Well, Frank alluded to it, but we are all here to talk about my adventures with Superman. Me, Tim, and Superman teaming up and having fun together. That's what we're talking about. Also, he's in a show called My Adventures with Superman, which premiered on Adult Swim and then on Max the next day, right? I was a
Yes.
Max watcher because I don't have cable. It
I'm
did not
also
ruin my
Max.
enjoyment of the show at all. Because
I actually prefer Max because
Me
when I was
too.
watching I watched the premiere on Cartoon Network because it was like, oh, I got to watch it at midnight as soon as it comes out. And there was commercials. So I said, this is not as good as what I normally watch, which is streaming
No
services with no
commercials.
commercials. So I also prefer the Max version.
Yeah,
One for
I'll
HBO.
wait the next day, especially when it comes out at like midnight or whatever,
Right,
or like
right.
at night. I'm like, I'll wait 6 hours
Right.
because the chances are I'm asleep, and if I'm not asleep, that means I'm dealing with a child. And
Yes.
so,
Mm.
or I drank too much
Mhm.
water that day. But either way, it's not time to watch Superman. Um, However, every time I did watch Superman, it was the greatest 20 minutes of my life in that
Oh.
moment. It was wonderful from start to finish. I don't know how I know pretty much how most of you felt about it because we added here and there, but it is definitely one of the better Superman adaptations to cross our paths in a few years. And what I think I liked about it most, and I'll say before I'll give you gentlemen time to speak, is that it was authentic to the characters that I certainly recognize within all of them, but they all felt fresh. And not
Mm.
fresh in like the sassy, Andrew Garfield Spider-Man kind of fresh, but the like more of like original takes on beloved characters. Like Clark is still definitely Clark, but he's goofy Clark, but like but a believable goofy, not Christopher Reeve like putting on like are there any more like you? Like no, not really. No. Like there's definitely more people like Clark. I recognize him. I have friends that are like him. Um and so but he felt real to me. Jack Quaid I think did a great job.
Yes.
And Lois is probably I feel like the one that's the most like Lois. I think maybe she's a little
Yes,
more
right.
immature than we're used to seeing Lois.
Mhm.
So she's got a little bit of growing up to do, the way that she reacts to certain situations. And then there's Jimmy, who actually feels like a loyal, feels like a worthy member of the trifecta now, instead of just being like, and it's Jimmy, like the Gilda's Island, like old thing, the old
Right.
theme song was like, and the rest, like he didn't.
Yes.
Marianne didn't get the rest. That's Jimmy Olsen to me, and the rest, like this feels his like conspiracy theory Jimmy is a worthy addition. He rounds them out very well. So I was pleased as punch with the three. Mark, what did you think?
Yeah, I got a little behind on it, so I ended up basically I had watched that first episode way back when we did that episode of this, and then I basically over the past 3 days binged the rest of it to catch back up. And I would have to say this show, like I don't usually like doing that with a lot of shows, but this show actually that I thought that worked really well doing that for this show. With like, each episode is its own thing, but it felt like a big cohesive like serialized story through watching it that way, and I liked that. And with what Tim was saying is that they all feel like familiar characters while also feeling like new takes on all of them. And I return that sentiment of Jack Quaid does an excellent job as both Clark and Superman in this. And I really liked Lois in this as well too. The actress who did the voice Alice Lee, I really liked her performance as she was on Zoe's Extraordinary Playlist. One of the things that she's done, but I thought she did a really good job, and then I thought Ishmael, so he did a really good job as Jimmy Olsen as well. And there's just I like some of like these smaller voices that we got throughout that weren't recurring, but I did overall like all of that going on with it.
That's great. Vactor.
The same thing that I felt on our first episode where we talked the first 2 episodes, I feel now, but 10 times more. I feel like this is one of my favorite shows that I've ever watched in my life. I loved My Adventures with Superman. I refer to it as the Superman anime, but it was not, there was never a disappointing episode. I was following it week to week and I was never let down. The entire time, I was just in awe that I'm watching a Superman anime. Like I said, I have a love of anime and of Superman, and this was the chocolate and the peanut butter going together in the same jar the Goobers peanut butter and jelly in the same jar, and I there's nothing bad for me to say about this show. Um, I really had kind of in my mind as I was watching it, I had questions about what do the Superman loyalists think about this show? Because we all grew up with a certain version of Superman, and for 80 years, there's been a consistent Superman. Um, it's very seldom strayed from that, and I'm wondering. This one I think is the most drastic take on Superman that I've ever seen, where there it's not your daddy's Superman, basically. And so I'm curious what each one of you, like I said, we're our friendship is largely based on Smallville, Superman, Batman, and the DC universe. All of us. So all four of us have this connected bond over the DC characters. And as I was watching, I was just like, man, what are the other guys thinking about this take on Superman? So that's what I'm really interested to see. Myself, I loved it. Like I said, it was 100% what I wanted out of a Superman anime. Jack Quaid's interpretation of Clark Kent and Superman was fantastic for me. I don't I thought he brought that vulnerable side to Clark, and he wasn't. And I think I might have said this in the last episode that we did. He wasn't the big booming Superman that I think most people think of, and it's become a cliche of hey, you're not Superman, you're not a bodybuilder or whatever. I think Jack Quaid's version of Superman kind of takes it and flips it. But also in this period, in this time period of his life, I think this is perfect for Superman discovering himself. And the way that they had the changes to the lore and to the canon, I think that kept it fresh for me because I know so much of what was the classic Superman iteration. So each time there was something new with Task Force X or with his, especially with his Kryptonian heritage and Brainiac and how all of that stuff played in, I was like, oh, okay, this is a completely different take on it. So I'm curious where they go with it. So that was the fun I was having as I was watching week to week of, oh, when are they gonna introduce Kryptonite, and then how is it gonna affect him? So all of these things, I just like I said, it was just slowly giving me more of what I loved each week. And this last episode, I thought was fantastic. Episode 10 was a great wrap up to this first season and a nice little tease for season 2.
Frank.
I loved the pure fun swashbuckling adventure of this show. Like, give me, I mean, it's in the name, right? Like My Adventures with Superman, but like it delivers on that. It was so fun every single time out of the gate, like 10 times out of 10. It was so fun, so enjoyable. They kept me interested all season long, watching the storyline unfold, and then each individual adventure that we got to go on with these characters was great. I loved Jack Quaid's version of Superman. I feel like this is right now, like we have two great takes on Superman on TV between Superman and Lois and My Adventures with Superman. Loving what's coming out of these TV iterations of Superman, because I feel like they really, at the core, get who this character is. Like, I feel like they really, at a core, there are common things that both shows, live action and animated, have in common, and with different characteristics and different storylines. But like at the heart of it, I feel like these are teams that understand and like Superman, and that's what you want. Like when you love a character as and have a history with a character, you want to see them treated well, and I really feel like this character is getting treated well, and I am a very happy Superman fan.
Good. Yeah, I agree. Vactor, you said something I want to go back to, and it was the like the twist on the Superman mythos or characters that we know, and they're like Task Force X, and they're keeping you engaged. What I'm curious for the group is that, like, everything is stemming from Kryptonian technology. Like that's kind of the MacGuffin of the show in some way, at least like knowing this is where all the these characters come from. And I've heard some flack about that, like it's too much of the same thing for all the characters to be involved in that. And I was thinking about it in that like Superman the animated series was able to diversify like villain origins, like this one's magic and this one's this chemical and this one's this. But it also told episodic stories that were actually allotting time to villains more than the show, because this is one of the first animated Superman shows to give us a story arc instead of just an individual. Like it's My Adventures with Superman, but there's an overarching story that it's telling, and so it's like it's devoting time to that story in place of here's the long version of the villain story. But I like this angle, one because like Vactor said, it's new, which is nice. It kind of reminds me of Smallville with the like it's because of the kryptonite,
Right.
like, and so like in this one it's because of the Kryptonian technology. Like that's just like where we're going with it, and I'm for it because it makes the world feel cohesive in a way that early comics didn't really, and then adaptations didn't have to worry about it, where it was just kind of messy. But as far as a narrative is going, everything stemming from one place, and then it feeling like, or Clark feeling like that's his fault, but it's not his fault. I do like, because Superman is nothing but taking the sins or guilt of others and placing them upon himself. But I do like that he is in fact pretty blameless for it. It actually reminds me of like Clark in Smallville being like, well, I brought the meteor shower and like disrupted Smallville, because it wasn't his fault, but he feels like it was, and that's like the essence of young Clark, especially.
Yeah.
And that's what I'm enjoying so much. So going back to Mark, what do you think?
Yeah, kind of with the sentiment, what you're saying about Smallville there too, is that even though he's like slightly older, early 20s Clark Kal-El in this, I liked throughout the season how he was kind of coming across new powers every so often, every few episodes, like, and learning to use those. The one I thought was funny is when he gets the super hearing and he's like up for like 3 or 4 days in a row, because now he's just trying to save everybody now that he can hear everybody and doing that, and just how all of those are introduced in there too. And then kind of like what you were saying with how he in Smallville, how Clark feels like bad for the meteor shower coming in and taking a bunch of stuff out in Smallville. Similar to that, and here with the whole 0 day element of the show, which I thought was funny because it was almost like a snake eating its own tail. Of if anyone's ever seen the Iron Giant, where when the Iron Giant finds out, or that he's like meant to be like a weapon, and the Iron Giant and that is obsessed with Superman. Oh.
This movie came out in like 1999. Like it's my fault at this point. I don't care.
It's all right. But like Iron Giant's obsessed with Superman, so you now flip it around over to this, where it's like the same kind of plot element of Superman feeling the way that the Iron Giant did in it. And I just thought that was...
Tim, were you being serious or were you joking? I thought you were joking.
What? That I hadn't seen the Iron Giant, or that it came out in 1999?
That you haven't seen Iron Giant.
That was in the dark. I'm not sure when it came out. Feels right though.
Yeah,
right?
It is right. Yeah.
Yes. See, feels like a movie that was made before the 2000. I know I haven't seen it.
Okay.
That
was
for Beer with Geeks.
We did a Hit Me With Your Best Shot.
That's what it was. I okay. All right.
You tried to convince me to watch it, which you did, but I have since forgotten everything that you said years ago.
I retract my objection.
So one day I will get to it. I just don't, when you sit down and you're like, I gotta watch something, I don't think like, oh, what's that movie from almost 30 years ago that I haven't watched yet?
Right. Unless it's for a podcast, I really don't watch anything these days. It's only, okay, I got to watch My Adventures with Superman because we're going to be talking about it. I got to watch Blue Beetle because we're going to be talking about like, that's these days, that's how my schedule works.
Yeah. It's either that or like stuff that I watch with my wife.
Yes.
And so like, it's like which stuff I don't podcast about, Reservation Dogs, Men in Kilts. anybody wants to talk about
Oh,
that
I haven't seen that.
travel show, it's great. It's
Okay.
anyway. Vactor.
And
Go ahead.
well, it's very interesting. I don't know if this is Tim. Do you think this is a modern storytelling device now? Because Ultimate Spider-Man does the same thing, where everything is tied to Norman Osborn and Oscorp. All the villains come out of that. Everything is tied to that one thing. And when I first read that, I was enjoying it, and I was like, "Oh, this is cool. Everything is like if they had planned it out from the beginning, yeah, everything would have been tied to one thing. But the way that Spider-Man was created in the 60s and onward, it was, oh, let's all right, as a guy dressed like a rhino, let's see if he turns out okay. Okay, there's one that's dressed like a clown or chameleon, whatever. Like they just kind of were going and seeing what stuck and some things stuck and some things didn't. But with Ultimate Spider-Man, they had the hindsight of, oh, these are the popular villains. These are the ones that everybody loves. So we can kind of pick and choose what we want. But Smallville, like you said, did that with the meteor shower of tying everything to one event. And now
Well,
this is doing it.
I mean, even Marvel kind of does it to an extent. Like either everything is tied to an Infinity Stone for a long time,
For MCU.
or it's
Yeah.
tied to Tony Stark's choices.
Right.
Like those
right.
are
Mhm.
those are the two delineating things that happen.
Yeah.
Well, there are a bunch of villains over here because Tony was a bad person, and then there are a bunch of villains over here because of space rocks. Like those
Right.
are the two things. There are
Yeah.
very few stories in between that are just like stories.
Right. And maybe that's again with the hindsight thing of we have the MCU now being what is it, 15 years old at this point, and we have the benefit of, oh, okay, now we can look back on it and everything is connecting. I wonder with other universes, like let's say with Invincible, like there's certain things that they don't have the hindsight and they're just making it up as they go along. So not everything is specifically tied together. I don't know how I feel about that. I guess I'm 50-50 on it because part of me likes the organic nature of just free flowing and coming up with the ideas as it goes along. And then the other part of me is like, oh, yeah, it does kind of narratively make it a cohesive story of from start to finish. If they wrote this as an original graphic novel instead of as an ongoing monthly. So with this show, everything being tied to Clark's arrival and 0 Day and everything, I think I still need a little bit more to find out about that and about the origins because even in this episode, Jor-El speaks a couple words of English. I still want more of that. What type of Jor-El is this? Is this a Smallville Jor-El? Is this a Marlon Brando Jor-El? I'm swinging back and forth between
He's a
how
Russell Crowe Jor-El, obviously.
yeah
Like,
yeah
yeah.
he actually does the
Yeah.
styling of him definitely. So I'm interested to see that, and so maybe in season 2 I can come back to you and say, okay, yeah, that was successful and I like that take on it, or no, I like my classic Superman of everything is on its own. So yeah, maybe come back to me after season 2.
I think that everything kind of happening on its own can be like narratively sloppy sometimes.
Right.
Like, where it's just like, oh, Rudy just happened to find some toxic chemicals
Right.
and now he's the bad like,
Right.
like what a crazy week this has been.
Yeah.
So I just but so hold on, I need to turn away from the microphone for 1 second to reach for something that matters. So it's weirdly, I was just going through Superman
Ooh.
A Secret Origin earlier today. And everything is tied to Lex Luthor. Parasite, Metallo, like everything, and they didn't well, I mean Metallo was, but Parasite necessarily wasn't. Like everything is always linked in here. And so I think it is a modern storytelling device, but it's one that it because they're pre-existing characters, I don't think that it's lazy or like takes away from the creative process. They're trying to figure out a new way to deliver something old. And so I think by tying things together, you're giving every character's actions and decisions narrative weight. instead of it just stuff just happening. Which you don't mind when it's like a bank robbery or something like that, but if that bank robbery is tied to this, is tied to this, is tied to this, then all of a sudden the stakes of that bank robbery are much higher, therefore delivering a much more engaging overall narrative product.
Yeah.
Right. Say things.
Yeah, Tim, you pulling out Secret Origin kind of illustrated my point better than I was planning to. Because like I was going to say, I feel like this show, a lot of shows feel like an ongoing series, an ongoing comic book series. This feels like I read a volume, the first graphic novel of a series, right? So it's like fairly self-contained in 10 episodes, and all the stories linked together, and they are all connected by a common origin for all of the goings on in the story, right? Because it's one story, like you said with Lex in Secret Origin. That's how I sort of look at it. It feels like a nice sort of neat packaged together story told over 10 chapters. And I came away from each chapter the way I feel after reading, that book that comic you get every month. It's like the one you're secretly the most excited about to get to in your stack, because it's like it's the most fun one, and you're like, all right, I'm savoring this one so I'll really enjoy it. And then it's over, and you're like, I can't believe it's 20 pages already gone. That's what this show felt like, and that's how I looked at it week to week, and it is how it felt like it was sort of structured.
That's actually how the current Nightwing book by Tom Taylor is for me. Every time a new issue comes out, I'm excited. I see it, I read it, and I'm like, oh no, it's over already. When's the next one coming out? So that was how I felt too with each episode, because this and Harley Quinn have been coming out in the past couple of weeks. They've been coming out back to back, so Thursday, Friday, and it's been like this great week of DC for me, looking forward to each one of those shows. Now that this is done, I only have Harley to focus on, which has been fantastic this season. If anyone's not watching, but yeah, I'm right there with you, Frank. I share every sentiment of the fun and the youthfulness of this, the vibrancy of it. Feels like a breath of fresh air, and especially with a lot of the stuff that's been going on with DC, unfortunately, with the live action films, it's been kind of anticipation and then disappointment for me leading up to, okay, hey, there's a new DC movie coming out. Oh man. And I'm hoping the Zack Snyder, the James Gunn universe is a enjoyment for me, because I have a lot of high hopes, expectations, and I don't want to be let down. But with my adventures with Superman, it hit it out of the park every week. It set me up, and then it knocked it out. Like it never missed. There was no strikes in this metaphor. So I'm very happy that the way that this whole season turned out. And like Frank said, you can look at it as one volume of a series, almost even like that Earth One series that DC was doing, where it was like, all right, here's the Earth One Volume One Batman, here's the Earth One Volume Two Batman. So I think this is going to be in that same vein, especially once we get the second season. I'm hoping they go longer. Beyond, I'm hoping the success of this show and the popularity proves that they can continue, because, like with what Tim said, Superman the Animated Series, I think those 3 seasons I hold up on a pedestal and say, man, that what they were able to accomplish with those 3 seasons was really extraordinary. And I'm hoping that my adventures with Superman can get up to that level. They're starting out on a great note, but I'm hoping they can sustain that level of quality.
Vactor, would you agree that part of like that format, that sort of feeling like it's a volume in a series like that's sort of partly due to the anime format? Would you agree with that?
Yes, yeah, that would definitely fit that that format and that function. So yeah, I could see a lot of the creative process of them saying, okay, the way we're going to structure this is like an anime series. And I'd really like to see a lot of behind the scenes stuff on this because I'm itching to. I mean, I've seen stuff on Twitter and some of the creatives involved, but I really want to see how the sausage was made on this one. I love watching behind the scenes stuff anyways, but with this one in particular, it being anime, I want to know whose idea was that to say we're gonna make this the Superman anime because, and I think I said it on the last episode, that one decision changed everything about this show. Everything, kind of like what we're saying with all of the villains coming from one focal point. The focal point in the production of this show was, hey, we're going to make this an anime. And so everything from the animation style to the humor, the tone of Superman, and like we said, like the format of these each episode fitting into a slot, of a graphic novel, everything stems from that choice to make it an anime, kind of like the most recent Ninja Turtles movie that just came out on streaming 2 days ago, which is kind of crazy because it was in the theater 30 days ago.
I didn't know that.
Yeah, it just came out. Anyways, Mutant Mayhem is the name of the movie. That movie, everything stemmed upon, we're going to make this teenagers. We're going to make the voice actors teenagers. The writing is for teenagers. Like everything stemmed, the animation style is like a teenager doodling in his notebook. Everything, the focal point of that movie is the teenage part of Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles. And that's, like I said, this is the same way. And it's interesting to me. And I want to see who came up with that and where that thought process led to. So I'm hoping we get some good special features maybe when this comes out on a physical release.
I have a question concerning anime and all this because I am not an anime watcher. It's not like anything that I've like brought myself to. So this being anime to me like was really fresh. Like it allowed me as a viewer to go like, oh, I see why people like anime now because my exposure to anime is fairly limited. And like I don't want to say I necessarily don't count my childhood watching some Pokemon and Digimon and like
Yeah.
because I didn't grow up with Dragon Ball Z or anything like that. And I like it like I missed it as a kid and I probably would have liked it, and
There's still time, Tim. You can still watch it.
yeah,
They're still there.
like and I've tried other ones. Like I watched some of Death Note and I've watched a couple of seasons of My Hero Academia, which was great, which I really loved, but it was like
yes.
the emotions were so high that I needed energy to sustain watching them because I was like, Midori, he just keeps like crying all the time. And it's fine. It's okay to cry, but I'm a little tired of you doing that.
Yeah.
So for this one, this like almost like gentle pace of an adventure show, like there's a real calmness and stillness to it that you recognize in other in other animes. But so I guess my question is like, this is obviously legitimate anime. It's made by an anime studio and whatever. So like, but would you hand this to somebody who's like, I've never watched anime before, and you'd be like, well, this is a great entry point into anime? Or do you think that this is just is it a little too Western still because it's Superman? Also, what is the thing that you would compare this most to in an anime that's out there? Like if I said, I really liked this, I like this tone and style, what else can I watch? That's obviously not DC or superhero related, but like what's adjacent to it? I don't know who actually watches anime in this group outside of Frank, who I know who does not. So Vactor and Mark, tell me your secrets. Tell me your fantasies. Do you remember that from Batman Forever when he steps into the booth?
Oh yeah.
Bruce Wayne, tell me your fantasies. Yeah.
Mark, your son is a huge anime,
yeah.
and actually, you just watched the live action One Piece on Netflix earlier today. You were telling me off mic. Has your son been watching this?
Yeah, he's been watching it with me. So like he watched the first episodes with me before we did that first episode on it, and then he caught up with me the past 2 days or so as watched the rest of it. But yeah, he's very much into anime. Like he's watched like I don't even know. I know there's tons of episodes of like the actual anime for One Piece, and I think he's
Oh yeah.
pretty deep into it, and I don't think he's even near the end of it yet. But he's like watched that, and he's watched My Hero Academia and a whole slew of other things. And
Yeah.
he's so what's the right word for it? He's like so pure about it that he watches it
Right.
subbed, not
in
dubbed.
Japanese. Yeah.
Yeah,
Right.
so he's very specific about the way that he has to
Right.
watch it.
Right.
And he liked the style for this, and he even really enjoyed that live action One Piece, at least the pilot of it so far, which I guess would be a good sentiment for how well that was made, if that's one of his favorite anime shows, and he's very much liking the live action readaptation of it. I guess that must mean that they've done it due service from that.
Right.
But
Oh, just for context, One Piece is currently in its 20th season. There have, as of September 3rd, 2023, 1,074 episodes have aired. So that's just to give you context about anime. But that is also, anime is an adaptation of manga, which is Japanese comic books. That's all it is. So it's very interesting. We could do a whole podcast on this about the differences between Western comics and animation, and then anime and manga. And the real quick, just to kind of compress it, there's a lot more I would say emotion, a lot more romance. I think it's a heavier women there's a larger population of women that read manga versus American comic books. And I think the reason why is because American comic books have skewed towards superheroes so much, like that people, when you say comic book, they think superhero. They don't even think about Scott Pilgrim. They don't think about anything else, because that is what is popular in our Western culture. And so when I was growing up in Japan, I lived in Japan a couple times in my life, but when I would go on the train, I would see 50-year-old grandmothers reading manga. I would see 12-year-olds reading manga, like, and not only manga but video games. So there wasn't that taboo and kind of, oh, that's for video games or for kids, comic books, animation is for kids. In Japan, it's like, no, you can have, it's just the format that I'm reading this or watching this. It doesn't matter if it's not live action. It doesn't matter if it's not the typical format that the Westerners are used to, but can they tell a compelling story? And there's slice of life, there's romance, there's, any horror, anything that you can think of, which, we have in America, but we just cater so hard towards superheroes, which I love, as you know. If anyone's watched this channel before, um, I love superheroes. But that's what I like about anime, is that essence of, my wife can get into it a lot easier than if I'm telling her to, okay, I want you to watch this because there's superheroes in it, versus, hey, I want you to watch this because there's a good romance story between the lead characters, and the emotion of the story and the characters, you're going to fall in love with them versus anything else. But all that to say, I think, Tim, to answer your question, this is a good anime to show someone because it's a good anime. And the Superman-ness of it, the superhero-ness of it, I don't think puts it into a box necessarily, and says, okay, you only will like this if you like superheroes. You only will like this if you like comic books, whatever. I think anyone can enjoy this, and that's what makes it a great anime and show overall. And this is actually, I think, a really good introduction to who Superman is. And I think Frank was talking about that, of the essence and the core of the character is here. And that's what I really care about. Like I said, having the different version, or going off in different canon things. And it wasn't like that in the comics I read. And Jimmy was not black in the one I read. It's the core of the characters. Everything is captured here. I can recognize Lois, I can recognize Jimmy, I can recognize Clark. And even in the anime style where their eyes change into black dots or something, or they, they move real fast. Like the anime-ness of it is not a hindrance to it. So I think it's a good recommendation for people who are into anime. And then as far as something that's similar in tone, it really takes like a mishmash of things. I don't know a one-to-one comparison. I'm sure there is something that, and if you're listening to this or if you're watching this on YouTube, leave it in the comments below your recommendation of what type of anime is like My Adventures of Superman, because I think there probably is a more one-to-one. But for me, it takes bits and pieces of things. The humor of this show is very similar to the humor in Dragon Ball to me, and that was something that my wife fell in love with when I showed her Dragon Ball, was the humor and how funny Goku was, and the situations that he gets into. So that's kind of, there's some zaniness and there's some wackiness that is found in this show that I can take pieces of shows. Oh, that was, this show was funny like that. This one has heart like that. There's the action and adventure, like you said, of My Hero Academia, the superhero powers of it and the heroics of it. So there's a lot of little pieces that I see in here, but not a specific one-to-one recommendation. But yeah, man, all of these shows I'm thinking of now are getting me excited again. Yeah.
Vector, I had a quick question for you
Yes.
related to anime before possibly move to a different topic. Do you think maybe with the way that the storytelling is done, like with manga anime versus animation and comic books, do you think that is itself a thing that's related to like the attention spans of Western versus Eastern audiences? Because maybe this is gonna, like, me asking this question is gonna be a reel or a short on YouTube or Instagram, because those are the most popular things that people watch because they're the shortest things. And trailers have the 15-second trailer before the trailer now. Do you think that's
Right.
you think that's something that's very specific to either Eastern or Western culture, having like lived in both for a very, like, a good portion of your life?
Yeah, I don't know recently. That would be actually a good thing to ask someone who's living in Japan right now. I wonder, are shorts a thing in Japan? Is TikTok popular in Japan? I don't have my finger on the pulse like I did because I was living there in the 90s. So back
Yeah.
then we didn't, the Western culture wasn't necessarily about short things. And now we have, 15-minute, think about Adventure Time and things like that, and even Teen Titans. The episodes are 15 minutes long, and it's like they're getting shorter and shorter. I don't know if that's a good thing or not. But it is what, with the way, definitely the way everyone's attention span is now, and the shorts, like you said, the reels, the TikToks. I wonder. I'm curious about that as well. Is that a Western thing, or is that just a entire? This is a global thing of everyone's attention spans are shorter. That's a very good question.
I did
So
use
what
my
I'm,
one
what I'm
look.
taking away from this is that Quibi was right.
No, no, no.
Wrong time, right idea. Yeah.
I
I did
yeah.
look it up. TikTok, according to Japan Buzz,
Oh,
but
yes,
actually through
yes.
ByteDance advertising data.
Yes.
TikTok is widely used and is Japan's sixth most popular social media. TikTok has 16.5 million users in Japan, 50% below the age of 30.
Okay.
Hmm.
That doesn't, if it's
So
the
8
sixth largest,
million
that doesn't,
below the age of 30.
and Frank is the social media expert. The sixth largest doesn't really, that doesn't feel like a good marketing term to me. Like, hey, we're
That
the sixth
doesn't.
best hamburger in the town.
Well,
Yeah,
I'm
that,
number.
yeah,
Number
that doesn't
7.
feel
I'll
great.
go to a different one. Number 1 is Line, 2 is X, 3 is Instagram, 4 is Facebook, and this one says 5 is TikTok, but I'm not
What
sure.
was number one?
Line, which I don't know what that is.
Oh, I've never heard of that. Yeah, that's interesting.
I
I'm
think
gonna say
Line is sort of like
video.
WhatsApp.
Okay.
Oh,
sure.
okay. Yeah.
Yes, you are
Well,
correct.
another
Yes.
thing is, growing up in the 90s, they were first on cell phones for sure. Like mobile devices were much more popular, and to the point where really desktop computing hasn't caught on the way that the way that we have desktop computing, because everybody's phone was the most powerful computer, and they were able to take it with them on the trains, commuting from work. And mass transit in Asia especially is like a lot better than it is in the United States. So I think them having their cell phones first there and catching on, maybe that also contributes to, hey, we can watch these bite-sized things on our phones, the quibbiness of it, versus if I'm on my desktop or if I'm at home, I want to watch something on my 4K TV. I want to watch it as good as possible, the best possible situation. So I don't want to watch it on my phone. I don't want to watch Oppenheimer on my phone. I want to watch it on my big screen TV. So yeah, that's all of those things are interesting questions to ask.
Just to wrap up our full conversation here, just does anybody have one moment, one sentence moment that they just thought was the best, like what a fun thing that maybe was
Ooh.
new to Superman mythos that you hadn't seen before, but maybe you had seen somewhere else? Mine is the Council of Lois's. I just thought that was the best. All the Easter eggs that came along with that were also really
Yes.
fun. But I just really liked the elevation of Lois Lane to be like, you know, you know, Rick or
Right,
Mr.
right.
Fantastic
Yeah.
or like any of
Yes.
these other, or these other places that have these councils of things.
Right,
There's so
right.
many of them.
Mhm.
Big fan that is Lois. So, Frank, did you have one?
I'm gonna say like Jimmy. Like I loved Jimmy being the conspiracy theorist and the social media expert that he appears to be. I love that angle on him and that aspect of him, because that really, Jimmy's usually the youngest of the three of them,
Right,
right? And here they're
right.
much more the same age. But I love that there is that aspect of Jimmy that sort of still gives him that youthfulness
Mhm.
that really kind of it fits. It fits really nicely.
And I want to see that the last shot of Jimmy. Oh yeah, I'm rich now. I want to see how that plays out in the next season.
Yes.
Where are they going to go with that? That was hilarious. I was laughing
He is a
out
millionaire
loud.
or a billionaire in the comics right now too. Like his parents
Oh,
have like apparently like always been. This is like the latest thing is that his parents have always been super
mm.
wealthy, and that he just never he doesn't care, so
Ah,
he never lets on. But he
right.
actually is quite extraordinarily
Ah,
wealthy.
nice.
So that was a whole thing with his um, mini series or max series for a little while. So it was just
Ooh,
last year or the year before. So it's like
was
still a
that
thing.
Tom King? Who was the writer on that?
No, it was the same guy that did the Flintstones.
Oh,
I
yes, yes,
can't
yes.
remember who that was off the top
Yes,
of my head,
yes.
which was also great. If you're looking
Yep,
for a good
yes.
reboot-ish thing. So, Mark, what about you?
I'm gonna agree with you on the stuff with the Legion of Lois Lanes,
Mhm.
and I liked in that episode that the Lewis Lane was essentially like the Jimmy, and I liked that they got what's his name, Osric Chow, who played Ryan Choi in like the Arrowverse, and he was Kevin Tran
Oh,
on Supernatural. He was Lewis Lane in that, so I liked that in there, and I just liked their whole take on Mr. Mixapickle, like,
Yes.
or if
mhm.
Vactor, my friend Rob, is listening to it, he'll have his own pronunciation of that name that he likes to do.
Yeah, that is
I
a not safe for work version.
Yeah,
Yes.
uh, but yeah, I liked that whole episode and how they played around with some of the Easter eggs in that, and they did their own kind of version of multiverse shenanigans with that. And the only other thing outside of that that I thought was fun, and I sent it in like our kind of Instagram chat thing, was I was watching it and there was an animated character that looked like a character from another TV show that I like, that looked like Trent Krim from Ted Lasso, and I have to assume that that was done on purpose. Uh, there's no confirmation of that, but it's too close a likeness to James Lance for it to not be. And he's in a newspaper, so I mean, it kind of fits. But overall, I just think I liked the entire vibe of the show, and I liked episode 7, I think, the most of all of it. Also, I have a question for everybody: was anybody actually surprised by who the general was?
Not even remotely.
I
First
thought-
and second episode
Yeah,
when they
yeah.
first, I was like, wow, it's
I thought
obvious.
that was pretty obvious. Yeah.
Yeah.
What I
Yeah, I
I
reminded
almost didn't
myself
pick
is
up that it was supposed to be a surprise.
Yeah.
Yeah. Right.
I figured it was supposed to be a surprise because the show, in the end, is not meant for our age group. Like, I kind of
It's
watched
fair.
it all through, like, this is meant for kids.
Yeah.
So, like,
Well,
this
also-
might be a big surprise for a kid who's not thinking the way that we think about stories.
Right. Well,
Yeah.
also anyone who doesn't have a knowledge of Superman
That's
would
right.
not know that. They wouldn't know Lois's dad was General Lane. So yeah, I think that one for the Superman aficionados, that was not a surprise. But for anyone new to Superman, I think that would have been a surprise.
Yeah.
The author that Tim was referring to is Mark Russell. I was looking him up, and
Oh, yeah.
I also think that Flintstones, and I think he did a Snagglepuss comic as well. But he did some fantastic work, so I need to check that Jimmy Olsen out. I hate to sound like the exact same person as everyone else, but that the Lois Lane episode, the Council of Lois's, it was my favorite, but specifically because Mrs. Spitlick was straight out of Dragon Ball. That character design was something that came out of Dragon Ball Z. So when I saw it, I was like, this is perfect for the Superman anime. This is the perfect version. I want to see the Batmite and the Nightmite. I want to see them in this universe.
Totally. I actually would love to see their version of anime Batman.
Ooh,
this,
yes.
like other characters. I'm sure they will eventually. I mean, like
Yeah.
Task
Season
Force
2.
is a
Yep.
part of this, so I'm sure that it'll get there one day.
Yeah, because that
Right.
episode even like hinted at more like Stargirl and like a few other characters like within that place where they had some of that stuff.
Yeah. I only had one disappointment. I was reaping the praises earlier, but my one disappointment was the voice actors, and we talked about this in the first episode where we were like, "Oh man, they got Michael Emerson is playing Brainiac, and now I'm blanking on his name, but the Slade Wilson,
Oh, Chris
Um,
Parnell.
Chris Parnell. We barely got to hear them in the 10 episodes. Like I don't think we ever heard Chris Parnell again after that first time.
No, he yelled when he got his eye electrocuted.
Oh yeah.
He never had his own like episode or spotlight on him.
It
And
just
then Michael
means
Emerson.
he will, in the
next
it just
one.
means they
Yeah.
will later. You
Yeah.
know,
Sure.
Yeah.
Right.
10
but
episodes, they really needed to focus on Superman.
Clark. Yeah. Deborah Wilson was great as Amanda Waller. I love her and everything that she's in. But Michael Emerson, Brainiac, we need more. Like I didn't
Mhm.
the voice modulation and things that they were doing. I was like, I just want Michael Emerson. I like him as an actor. So more Michael Emerson. And in season 2, like I think we were saying more of the other superheroes.
I do agree about the voice modulation too. I was like, stop it, all of you, right at the very end, the
Mhm.
last
Oh,
one
yeah.
was, I was like, just talk like people.
Right.
Yeah.
Like it sounds like my voice modulator.
And
It
now,
sounded like Kylo Ren at the very end.
blah, 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 blah.
Yeah, I can do that too. Like it barely did anything.
Master
Oh,
Chief.
Like that, whatever.
Oh,
Like,
Task Force Ganon. I
yeah,
love it.
That's
Tell
how
him R2.
yeah,
Tell him.
that's how I feel
Yeah.
about it.
Yes.
Yeah.
Excellent.
Well, this gentleman has been a blast, as it always is, and using those voice modulators always throws off the microphone. So I apologize for the weird audio now. Does it every time. I don't know why. But
Worth it.
anyway, that was us fascinated with animation in the Vactor-Verse with some beer with no geeks. No, all geeks, no beer, except for Mark, who actually understood the assignment today.
It's a geeky beer too.
It is. It's not just a beer. It's a geeky beer. He like went above and beyond, and
did.
none
He
of us
did.
could follow. It was great.
It does smell of
And so-
elderberries too.
There are some who would call me Tim. So anyway, Mark, where can the people find you if they are interested in animation fascination?
If you just go to like Linktree/animation fascination, all the links for animation fascination are there. YouTube, Instagram, Twitter, Facebook, all the places that you find. On animationfascination.net also has all of that stuff too.
I do believe you mean X, the
Nope.
so aptly named. I hate it so much. I don't really. Yeah.
You thought Max was bad.
No. But, yeah, I would have taken Ma. Would have been better. Yeah. Oh, it's no good. Vactor,
Yeah.
where can the people find you if they are interested in the Vactor-Verse?
Any place that has audio podcasts, you can find the Vactor-Verse. But my main place is on YouTube, youtube.com/Vactor, my last name Vactor. Or if you're finding us through Shorts, I'm also on YouTube Shorts, TikTok, Instagram Reels, which I guess Instagram Reels also counts as Facebook because the last episode that we did, one of the shorts from that got 100,000 views, and it was from Facebook. Really, the majority of it was from Facebook. So I guess if you count Instagram and Facebook as one entity, I'm on there. So any place that you can find that stuff, you can find the Vactor-Verse. Oh yeah, I'm on X too.
X. It marks a spot, probably.
Yeah.
Frank, where can the people find us?
BeerWithGeeks.com is probably the easiest place to take a look and find links to this episode, past episodes, show notes, all that fun stuff. And patreon.com/thoughtbubbleaudio if you want to support the show as well.
Oh, thank you all. Gentlemen, thank you so much for being here on the Vactor-Verse, in which animation, fascination, and Beer with Geeks are also present. Oh my gosh, it's very hard to combine all of our names together. I did the last time we were together, but now I'm just like, wherever the show is, that's the main show. So if you're on Animation Fascination, that's the main show. If you're watching us on the Vactor-Verse, that's the main show. If you're listening to us on Beer with Geeks, that's the main show.
Yeah.
That's all I got for you. But the main show here is My Adventures with Superman. Check it out on Max. It's terrific. Thank you all for being here tonight. Until next time, cheers.
Cheers.
Perfect.